What is up guys, it is Jake from the Sanctum Squad. Today I'm bringing you a Darkwood deck profile, but it's going to be a little bit more than just a deck profile itself. I'm going to talk about the reason as to why I've picked these cards up, because there is quite a big reason. I've not seen anyone talk about this reason yet as far as Darkwoods go. So you may realise that the OCG are releasing structure decks at the minute in a pattern. So if you've heard of structure deck R's, you'll realise exactly what it is. They're essentially taking classic structure decks and just like rebooting them to give them new cards to try and bring them back into like the modern game. Some of the most like recent examples of like structure decks that have been released this way in the OCG that we've also received as well. The Machina deck, the Dragunity deck came out in the OCG where you got it as like in like a booster set though. And then in this year as well, the OCG also got the Agent structure deck. Now, if you've played this game long enough, or you sort of like haunt the Yu-Gi-Oh wiki page, you can very easily see that the next structure deck in line after Agents is Darkwood. And Darkwood is actually like nothing like any of the previous examples that I've just like mentioned, because this deck has actually had like a lot of modern success, basically just due to the danger monsters. This deck has won YCSs. It's like in the heights of it, like it was FTKing left and right. It's had 3 different FTK variants over its like lifespan over the past like 3 or 4 years. I think it's been like since the dangers came out. So yeah, I just want to go over like a very basic deck profile, and then after the deck profile I want to talk about what I expect them to release as far as like new cards go, and like what I sort of like want them to release. 2 different things, because I think like it is quite predictable what they're gonna do with the Darkwood support compared to what people will actually like expect and want. So yeah, let's get straight into the profile. So we play Free Grapher. I'm not going to talk about like what the cards do or anything. I'm just going to say like this card pops a card and then revives itself. This one searches, definitely play 3. I'll just go back for like my third copy to arrive. Bro draws a card. I think if you care about like rarity as far as like these cards go, Bro is probably the one that you want to pick up like the most, just because this card has been used in like literally every version of Darkworld, and I can't see like this card being cut in the future. Something that I'm playing at the minute is Free Beige. You can play like literally any number of this from like literally 0 to 3. I play 3 just because this card lets you like rinse Grapher more in a single game, and that's why I wanted to play the deck, so this card helps do that. And then we've got dangers. You're basically going to max on every single danger that is good or has an effect going second. Like the only danger that I don't like play the maximum copies of is Chupacabra. The reason why I only play the one Chupacabra is because when you go second and you reveal this in your hand, or you reveal another danger, this is the only one that does nothing if it's hit first, which is like really annoying. But like every other danger will like trigger some kind of effect if it hits itself or if it hits another danger. But you can just play 3 Chupacabra if you want to. I've just found that it's my least favourite one from like my testing. This is sort of like newish, I guess, is that we can now play double Italy and double Frankenderp. This is something that used to be used in FTK variants, like with the slash draw and whatnot. But I wanted to bump it up to like 2 and 2, not only because it keeps your Italy live throughout the game, but we are playing Pot of Desires in this deck, so you don't just want to like play 2 of this, Desires away with your 1 Frankenderp, and then have like 2 dead Italies in your deck. Like I said, we are playing Pot of Desires. I do think that this card is like the weirdest card in the deck. I think this is the card that I'm like the most unsure about. The reason is because like literally the whole deck is just draw power. You're so high. Look, it's not even just Pot of Desires in general. Like it's like hard once per turn cards in general that I don't really like. So like you might want to like cut this down to like 2, potentially even 1. As like horrible as that sounds, but like it is like really common for you to draw like multiple copies of this for 80 turns, and that's obviously like, not ideal. But I do think this card is too powerful in the early phase of your turn to like not play. So yeah. We play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness, of course. This is probably like my favourite draw spell in the deck, just because it's not hard once per turn, and it actually fixes your hands all the time. But yeah. And then this is something that I'm playing. I don't like it. I've never like been a fan of this card, but I really do want to like talk about this card in this video, because If you were to ask any Yu-Gi-Oh player to name a Dark World card just off the top of their head, the likelihood is that they're going to name Dark World Dlinks. It is probably like the most iconic Dark World card, and for that reason I do think that like if this deck does get a new structure deck, Konami will probably really focus like on keeping this card in the deck. I think it will be really strange for like from Konami if they like make it so that you don't need to play this card in the deck anymore. But yeah, something to note as well, that this card, like, even though it does suck, it has like amazing synergy with triple tactics talent, which is not something that I'm like that's in my main deck at the minute. But I definitely do want to like play with that card more, because like even like if your opponent, even if like you're sent first or whatever, you can actually use this to like, because your opponent's always going to try and get a plus off it, so then it like turns your talents on. And then the last card is just card destruction. This is like probably the strongest card in the deck. Like if you were to pick any single card in the deck that you could just open with every game, it'd be this, because like you'd probably just win. So now I want to talk about my ideas for what Konami could actually create as far as Dark World support goes. It is important for me to specify that these are not the cards that I would want, but these are cards that I could imagine Konami doing. So the first thing that I would do if I was a Konami employee and I was designated the job to design new Dark World cards, is I would actually force them to go second, or greatly encourage them to go second, or even if you're just making their deck optimal by going second. The reason why I do this is because every iteration of Dark World in like the competitive game has been absolutely disgusting going first. In recent history, there have been literally 4 different FTKs that were viable for Dark World. So the first iteration was the Firewall Cannon Soldier FTK. The next one was the Saryuja /Draw FTK. And then there was Arcana Force the World with Light Barrier FTKs that topped. And then there was another one. I'm not sure if this one actually ever topped any like large events, but I do remember seeing it. It was Cyberstein and Telekinetic Charging Cell, and then you'd literally just summon Blaze Phoenix Bombardment Bird and just burn them to death. And then on top of that, even like if you look way back when Dark Worlds were like released in their first structure deck, you didn't want to go second against that deck then either, because that deck used to use Drag Down into the Grave, Eradicator Epidemic Virus, Deck Devastation Virus, and Mind Crushes to basically just manipulate what you were allowed in your hand, and then they basically just pick out everything that would ever deal with Grapha. And then you're just forced to play with like crap cards basically, and I think it's a very sensible design to, like, when you're looking at a deck that has like done things like this in the past, is to force it to go second. As soon as you make a deck go second, it becomes so much fairer, because they have to choose to let the opponent go first and set up the board, that like set up some defense basically. It means that like their players are not going to resolve all the time how they want to, but one of like the benefits of like blinding second is it actually lets the Dark World player like make their deck a little bit like differently. There are benefits to going second. There just isn't, a lot of the time it just isn't enough of an incentive to want to do it. So what's quite cool is that when you come to designing new cards for a deck that blinds second, you can be a little bit more sort of heavy-handed with what the cards do, because they're going second, they're much fairer cards automatically. The opponent has already created some sort of defense for them. And so the first card I want to talk about that I've sort of put together is a fusion spell. So in case you didn't know, Dark Worlds actually had a fusion monster in the GX anime that was just never made into a real card. I'm pretty sure it was never even like summoned in the anime. All we know that it was meant to be summoned through the effect of super polymerization. And I really wanted to like get inspiration from like these two elements to put into like my cards, because I really do think that it makes sense for Konami to like do this. So the card's name was Colourless Chaos King of Dark World, and then I've like created a spell which is akin to Super Poly, because I couldn't think of like a non-janky way of getting Super Poly into the Dark World deck, and I've called it From the Depths of Dark World. The reason like I've intentionally not put polymerization or fusion in its name, just so that you can never ever use it with like Vert Anaconda, which is like just my way of just like balancing the card already. So this card reads as follows: add 1 Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, then fusion summon 1 Dark World monster from your extra deck, you discarding fusion materials from your hand. So it's a fusion spell, but it triggers the Dark Worlds. pretty cool. And then it also says, if your opponent controls a monster that was special from the extra deck when you activated this card, your opponent cannot respond to this card's activation. So that's the sort of super poly element that I went for. I didn't necessarily want it to just like suck up the opponent's monsters, just because I think that's like kind of boring. I really like cards that can't be responded to, that feel broken. But yeah, this is sort of like my idea of like a fusion spell. I do want to note that I didn't actually put a hard once per turn clause on this card, but on the fusion, I did actually state that it can only be summoned once. The reason why I've done it like this is because if you go second, for instance, and you're playing against a Guru deck and they don't control an extra deck monster, I wanted it so that if you get Ash Blossomed on your fusion spell, you can still use another one and to like summon the guy. But the difference is that if you like your first one goes through and you summon the fusion, you basically just can't use it again. Like, it's a hard once per turn, but only if it resolves, which I think is a pretty fair way of like making it. So yeah, with the fusion monster, I wasn't really sure what I wanted it to do. Obviously, it's just really easy to give it like destruction effects just because you're blind in second, sort of makes sense. But I feel like there could be something way more creative than that. So like, I didn't actually give it an effect. I just said it requires 2 Dark World monsters, and it can only be summoned once per turn. Like, if you've got like good ideas for like a going second fusion monster for this deck, then please just drop them in the comments below. But yeah, I did come up with another spell, and this is like sort of in connection to like the Dark World dealings thing that I was talking about earlier in the profile. Is I think just a spell card that forces you to play Dark World dealings but is good enough to make you actually do it. I think this is typical Konami. I think like that card really is the most iconic Dark World card. I think it would be really weird if Konami made it so that you didn't play anymore. So yeah, the way that I've like worded this card is add up to 2 Dark World dealings from your deck to your hand, and then discard 1 card. I didn't make it like a hard once per turn or anything, just because I didn't really put like a lot of like thought into this card, to be honest. Like, I feel like the decks that would use this are the Exodia decks. Like, I'm just not really sure I'm feeling that card, to be honest. I'm not sure, like, I just don't like it. I would much rather Konami just like retrain Dark World dealings to say draw 2 cards and then discard a Dark World. If you don't have Dark World in your hand, banish your hand. I'd much rather that. It'd just be nice, but I just don't see them making it so that you don't have to play dealings in your deck anymore. And the last card that I want to talk about, which is actually like my favourite card, it's a trap card. So like, it's quite weird to say that you're blind in second, but then also have a trap card, which is the best one out of the bunch. But this one is basically like an infinite impermanence, but Dark World themed. The way that I've sort of like written this card, I'm not really sure how the actual correct text would be on this card, because there isn't a card like it that exists. So it reads as follows: you can only activate this card when your opponent activates a face-up card or effect. Reveal 1 Dark World monster in your hand, and if you do, the effect of their card becomes your opponent discards 1 card. If you control no face-up cards, you can activate this card from your hand. So basically, you'd activate it, you'd chain it to something, and then whatever your opponent activated would force you, the Dark World player, to discard a card. And you've just revealed a Dark World in your hand. So what this does is it's actually like a cool way of triggering the second effect of Dark World. This is something that it really will not surprise me if it's something that Konami really focuses on, if they like release this structure deck, is to trigger the second effect of Dark Worlds, because the second effects of them are actually like broken. You just can't trigger them, and Konami have never released any cards good enough to get them to trigger. But yeah, so that's basically like it for my whole like sort of Dark World discussion. I've really enjoyed this video, like making this video, to be honest, because there's like a creative element for me as sort of like designing cards. I think it was just really cool. So yeah, let me know if you like this video, and thank you for watching, especially if you watched it all the way to the end, because it is a long video. So yeah, check out our affiliate link too. It will be in the description box below. It's tcgaccess.co.uk. So yeah, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.